Good evening. Welcome to the reconvening of the Cohasset Select Board for Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. We convened at 6 o'clock and went into an executive session. We've done that executive session. So we are reconvening right now. Let's do roll call. Who's here? Corey?
Corey Evans here.
Diane Kennedy here.
Already here.
Jean Haley Dipple here.
Jack Creighton here. First on our agenda is the board and sidewalk update appointments. Paul is handling this for the select board. So Paul, could you tell us what we have here?
We have Mr. Ralph Gormitzer, who's volunteering to be on the committee. Roads and sidewalks. This is on the Atlantic. I conflate the two. I actually lose them sometimes, Ralph. And we're very grateful to have him.
Any discussion? Ralph, would you like to say anything?
Well, first, well, thank you for the board, even thinking that I would be the right person. Okay, I appreciate that. I wonder if you would indulge me with some comments on the charge of the committee a little bit.
Well, what the committee's charged with is what we want to do. It's, probably not a long-term committee, shorter-term duration that we're looking at is getting out, assessing the needs, prioritizing the sidewalks, roads, coming up with and looking at warrants. We want to prioritize, identify, and again, the committee's going to make its own rules. If we meet, say, how do we attack? Get out there. Yes.
Yeah.
And then we'll present it. And as we trying to look for financing, we want to get finance on board, and it will become part of our long-range capital plan. So we want to start getting some action done on those things in town and addressing the issues pretty quickly.
Well, let me give you some observations a little bit about this whole thing. Because I obviously have some reservations. I will be honest with you, I do. And I guess it is whether or not, given the long history of this question, it goes, and I'm looking at things that go back to a master plan of 2018, our current, 2004, our 2019 master plan, a whole set of things to be done. And the frustration of so many people about what hasn't been done for a long time. I would divide up what you're talking about in this in much simpler terms than our words. What would you just said? And I look at this as really two phases. One is what to do now. What in fact do we need for money for this upcoming time now? And second, what to do about other aspects of things that cannot easily be done and solved quickly. So what can be done and solved quickly? At least 5 years ago, maybe even more than it, we talked about this whole question at the capital. And at that time, we had 37 miles of roads, about including one. So we might have 41 now, I'm not sure, the numbers are confused. And we concluded that what had to be done was taking the $500,000, which was available, 300,000 from the capital budget committee, and roughly 200,000 for chapter 90. And that was enough to do 2 miles of road per year. So you divide 2 into 40 and you get 20, every 20 years, you should be able to replace every road in town. Things have changed. We just did Sawyer Street. We spent almost 500,000 on Sawyer Street. So that's 1 mile. 1 mile and a 10, 6,000 feet. So I look at where we are now and what could be done in the immediate near term. And I say to myself, the old considerations are no longer valid. If we can only do 1 mile, 500,000 plus another 100,000 for the sidewalks, which should be done simultaneously. then we're woefully short of money. So the first thing, it says to me, any action be taken by the select board or by the recommend person, and if you don't want me to do this, I'm glad not to take part, because I think this is critical. At least another $200,000 or $300,000 has to come out of the capital stabilization fund in order to meet a goal of actually replacing these streets and adding sidewalks every 20 years. Something in that order. That means that we need about $800,000. Some number like that. If we don't seek that, then why bother to have it? Because quite frankly, my action item would be to find out whether or not what should we do and what does it take to do. And I can tell you within this upcoming town meeting, that's the number one thing. We need to have that cash. Without that cash, we're not going to do this.
Well, may I say something?
Please.
That's why we have you.
Maybe that's why you don't want me.
Again, this committee hopefully is going to be a little bit different. It's belonging from all four quarters of Port Apple. All right, that's what we've reached out to. You know, like your Harlem and Village, we have Finch Creek and Kings Creek. We have Jerusalem Road, the area, so we're trying to encompass everything. And you know, it's not gonna be that big and robust committee, it's gonna be more action oriented. I'm hoping, and I'm not gonna wood, is that get out there, do it, prioritize, like for instance, so look at the areas of the greatest effect. Where do the kids walk? What roads need attention first? Why do we have these sidewalks falling down? We can just look there. Look at the low hanging fruit. Budget to fix it, and then we move on to the big project. Is everything gonna get done? Probably not over time, I hope. But I think we've got to start taking some steps right now. We all look at the conditions of our roads and our sidewalks, Stan Sawyer Street. But again, this is why I'll repeat it, we're on the four corners of the asset, not just a certain area. I'm not saying that's happened, not true. It's if I let people know that, you know, if they want, they can get involved from everybody. So we're trying to answer all the complaints or the inquiries, for lack of a better word, that we have.
So let me clarify some things. The Sidewalk Committee and Roads Committee is a committee of the select board to provide the select board with advisory and to do some informational research, and then you present it to the select board. Under our town government, we don't have road commissioners. The road commissioner function is to the select board. So the select board has the sole jurisdiction over all roads and sidewalks. So this is an attempt, or not an attempt, this is the select board getting some knowledgeable, concerned citizens to provide us with input, background, etc., and so on. So that's basically what we're doing. And so what you're talking about is what we're going to be looking for from the committee as a whole. And Corey has her hand up, and then Diane.
Yeah, just two things for Mr. Dormitz's appointment here, just for clarification. Is he serving as the seat for the representative from the Capital Budget Committee? Is that correct, Mr. Dormitzer?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so in the charge, we have a seat for the Capital Budget Committee, because what you just alluded to, what you spoke about, is exactly why capital budget needs to be part of this conversation, which is we have, you know, some of the short-term acute problems, but also, as you just said, we have a long-term underfunding of this, and figuring out where we need to be and figuring out how we get there through a timeline and what budgetary mechanisms we use, how we strategize, is why your committee is so important. So obviously, if you are the representative of the Capital Budget Committee, we can go ahead and appoint you. If you're going to sit as citizen at large, we probably, if you're going to be on this committee, it's probably best that you are that representative from Capital Budget. Otherwise, we'd have two Capital Budget members on this committee, and I'm not sure we can do it that way. So I would just say, maybe we just go back to Capital Budget, get some clarification on this. And if you're the representative, that's awesome, and we can keep on going. But as a citizen at large, I don't think we can put you on this, because we're going to have Capital Budget on this formally as well. Did I phrase that correctly?
Well, why not?
Yeah. So this charge allows for one person who is also on the Capital Budget Committee. So if we had Mr. Dormitzer, we couldn't also then have Mr. Dick, basically. That would take up a citizen at large. So if Mr. Dormitzer is interested in this, I'm sure the Capital Budget Committee would say, then they can fill that seat that we reserved for them. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Well, Diane,
Yeah, just, I kind of wanted to mention that too, because I thought it was a capital budget recommendation for approval. The other thing I want to say is we do have a number of applicants that we haven't interviewed for the citizen seats, and just in terms of representing the four corners of the town, so to speak. I have a couple of people that are planning to send in from Beechwood, because we don't have anybody from the Beechwood neighborhood. And that was a concern that we had from the get-go. And the other thing, Jack actually summarized what I wanted to, the first reason I put my hand up, which is that, this, Ralph, every point you made is absolutely spot on, and it's what we're challenged with. And I think it's really important to get a committee of citizens who might not have the experience level that you or any of us have in town government to sit around a table and understand that it's not so simple to just put a sidewalk up where it seems to make sense to do so. So personally, I would recommend that, or if Ralph is there on behalf of the capital budget, that would be great. And then we can find those other corners, because we do have Bill Burnett, who lives relatively close to where you are. So we kind of have that area of town covered. So, thank you.
Would you be willing to serve as a member of capital budget?
Yeah, you can stipulate anything, it doesn't really matter.
And I make a
You can
motion that
stipulate
we,
what you
I make a
want.
motion that we,
It doesn't matter. I just want to throw in just one last thought on this whole thing, and that is that I'm only about action.
that makes two of us.
Okay. I am not on a committee, I will not be on a committee that just will talk. I'm just not interested in that. I want to see something happen. And I do think it requires money, so whether or not I'm the right person to represent that view or not, it is my view that there has to be some money available, and it has to be coming up in this next town meeting, one way or the other, to make sure that we in fact fulfill what I think most people want. So, and the second part is clearly those more difficult things, where our new sidewalks going to go, how are we going to handle the ADA issues, and all the other things that are part of this, and also setting up I'd call it it's been called a methodology here, but a rationale for how we choose what we do. Okay, because a rationale for what we choose is going to be controversial, but that's going to have to be after the town meeting and after we have lots of time. I don't think you can do that in the short term. I don't think so. It's very hard.
no, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. So that is all.
Did you have a
Yes, I
motion?
do. I have a motion, plus Ralph, I'm gonna second that. I'm gonna say it's gonna be an action oriented committee, all right? Want to get some things done. I think everybody in this room would like to say that a little bit of a footprint to make the town a better place and not have to be invisible. So I would make a motion, if you're willing to serve as a member of capital, then make a motion to appoint Ralph to the Road and Sidewalk Committee.
Second.
Quick
We had a motion
point.
made and seconded to appoint Ralph to the committee. Is there any further discussion? Cory?
Yeah, if it's the capital budget committee, let's just add the stipulation, pending, approval of capital budget, because they're allowed to vote on their seat here too. So, I mean, it's just procedural, but we should do that to make it correct.
I think we'll find that if that becomes an issue, that we're perfectly capable of solving. One of the advantages of advisory committees to the select board, the select board really has the power at any time to change it, change the charge, change the members at any time. So I hear what you're saying, and I think the procedure already allows for it. Do I hear any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I call the vote. Starting with Diane and then Cory. I'm giving the Zoom people priority.
Thank you, Diane Kennedy. Aye.
Cory,
I'm going to abstain because I think we should let capital budget approve.
Paul,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean, Jack Creighton, aye. Motion carries 4 ayes, 1 abstention. Congratulations, Ralph.
And thank you.
So thank you for the confidence you have.
I think it's gonna work out.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. All right, moving forward, the Harbor Committee appointment to Martin St. John for the Yacht Club to fill his unexpired term. I don't see that he's here. I don't see anybody's here from the Harbor Committee. Is there discussion on this appointment? Hearing no discussion, ask for a motion to appoint Martin St. John to the Harbor Committee.
Could I make a comment?
Yeah.
Who's Martin St. John?
Martin St. John is a member of the yacht club and he's one of the officers in the yacht club. So this is the seat that we traditionally reserve for the yacht club.
Is he interested in being appointed?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that this was a voluntary appointment.
Well, sometimes it didn't end up well in the War of 1812, so we don't do that here. So we have Martin St. John. Do I have a motion?
I would move to appoint Martin St. John to the Harbor Committee based on your representations, Jeff.
We have a second.
I was seconded based on your representation.
We have a motion made and seconded to appoint Martin St. John to the Harbor Committee. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I call the roll, starting with Corey this time.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane,
Diane Kennedy, I.
Paul,
Already,
Gene,
Jean Haley DePaul.
Jack Creighton, aye. He's so appointed. Do we have Patrice Mai from the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail? Hi, Patrice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, great. Ihawa, which means good evening. In Irish, I didn't just make that up. I can say a lot of things in Irish. Most of them were taught to me by my cousins. They're a little blue and I won't say them on a filmed evening. But I'm trying to give you an immersive experience to what it means to be part of the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. The trail actually is an outgrowth of work in Scituate, where I live. We have a sister city partnership with West Cork. And as part of that work, we had been meeting with the consul, the Irish consul, and had been exploring ways to amplify that, what that meant and how it could have a stronger economic development impact. And we were inspired by the Wild Atlantic Way, which extends for the entire coast of the west coast of Ireland, 1,500 miles. Our vision is a little smaller. It's just the 9 towns along the coast from and inclusive of Weymouth down to Plymouth. But our thinking was that this area is called the Irish Riviera because 40% of the residents claim Irish ancestry. And why is that important? It's, I'm all, as you know, like diversity, equity, inclusion is really important to me, but so is history. And the Irish diaspora really helped reshape the way that the land that we share in the South Shore, because all of these people came here. They couldn't find jobs, they had to create things. And we celebrate that because suddenly they found agency in, as police officers, as firefighters, civic, and then now, we have an Irish person in the White House, and we had one in the 60s. Why is that important? I think it's important to look back, and it informs who we are going forward. But again, what's interesting about that is anytime you have some, we call it placemaking, where you have an Irish heritage trail, you're going to have not just the people who live here, but people from Canada, people from Ireland, who want to see, what this means and how this can help with the economic development in our towns. Cohasset was one of the first towns to join Scituate as part of developing this trail. And we do have a couple of very important hallmarks on the trail. And is it okay if I share my screen and show you the website that we have created, thanks in part to Cohasset Select Board? Would that
Sure.
be? All right, I will show you. Oh, let's get this here. I'm sorry I can't be there this evening, but this is our trail website. So we have a little home page, and you can see like it tells you Falta, which is another proper Irish word that we can share. It gives you a little bit of information about what I've just shared with you. But why is it important to share it with the Cohasset Select Board? Well, we have some, Cohasset is an important stop. One of the reasons is there was a huge shipwreck more than 100 years ago. 99 people perished on the coast of Cohasset. It's called the Brig St. John, and we have a Celtic Cross monument. So what this does is when people come to Cohasset, if they come to South Shore Arts Center, some of you know me from that, there are these little brochures that they'll get when they come there. And let's see if I can show you what those look like. Just so they come here and you see this, here's what the trail looks like. Oh, I'm not finding, I should really know this a little bit better. Oh, here we go. So you can see we've got this cute little brochure. It says Cohasset. So people coming into local stores, they can learn about this. Now you can make it a whole day trip and go through the whole, all 9 towns. You can just explore one town. But what we anticipate will happen is that while people are visiting the town for that, then they're going to stop by. Maybe they'll go to Bia Bistro for, I'll give you another Irish word. Bia means food. So as we know, Brian Houlihan is from Cork City, which is part of the Wild Atlantic Way, and he's very excited to be part of our own Wild Atlantic Way, which is the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. Do you guys have any questions about what this is about? Like, why was it important to you to be part of it? And how can I help explain that?
Any questions?
No, thanks. I think
We're
when
good.
when we got involved, it was really because of the Brig St. John stories and the rich traditions we had in town from that. And then obviously, there was a lot of economic development potential with bringing tourists to go through this. So thanks for all your hard work on this.
You're welcome. I'm going to make a little plug while we're here, and it's next on your agenda anyway, because I have a liquor license on your docket. We are hosting what's called the Black Velvet Soiree. It is to support the trail, and it's being held at South Shore Arts Center. But again, it's just to support creative placemaking in motion. And I think we can all agree that when you have a placemaking like an initiative like this, that it does draw audiences and visitors to Cohasset. It's like the festival, but it's all Irish all the time.
Well, Patrice, thank you. Are there any other comments? Is there anybody from the Zoom world that wishes to speak?
I do not see anybody.
Jane?
No, I would just say thank you to you, Patrice. You put on a great event last year, and a number of us met folks who came over from Ireland, and it was a really nice melding, including with folks from our fellow towns in Scituate who are part of the Irish Trail as well. I think about the Black Velvet. If you want to move on to that,
Well, we can-
maybe
we
describe
can-
some
At
information
the
about
discretion
that.
of the chair, we will combine this discussion with the next thing on the agenda, which is the 1-day liquor license. So address them as you will, Patrice.
Okay, so as noted, we'll be hosting a special event to raise funding for the trail, and a lot of it's for, we spend most of the money really for a couple things. One is to get the word out, and through that really robust website that I just shared with you, but we also place ads in trade magazines in Ireland and in Canada, because we've done some work with Sea Plymouth, and they've identified those as the 2 biggest drivers for tourism to the area for this kind of trail. There is a Boston Heritage Trail, and they've based some of it on that as well. So maybe people combining the 2. And this year we are initiating new awards called Trailblazer Awards. And we are celebrating Senator Patrick O'Connor because, as Jean mentioned, our elected officials have been really huge supporters and drivers of this initiative coming together. And we are also celebrating the local historian and treasurer, Catherine Shannon, who has provided us with so much information, particularly about the Brig St. John. She is a fountain of knowledge. So they will both be recognized and honored that evening. And it's just a special night, but we're also celebrating Irish art, which, so I get to fuse my passions. I always like to joke that I have a highly marketable master's in Irish studies, which prepared me for not much except something like this, and obviously art. So it's going to take place at the Art Center, but and the Art Center has its own insurance, but the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail has secured event insurance and coverage for $1 million themselves. And we have a tip certified bartender. So we're partnering with Chef's Table. I think the Art Center's used them many times. I'm pretty sure that many events in Cohasset have used them, but they would be the ones that would be providing or overseeing the liquor, it's not sales, but I guess the bartending. The drinks will not be for sale. They would just be they'd be included with the ticket price.
Well, you have seamlessly moved into the details. However, the date and time would be helpful.
Oh, of course. So it's a week from Saturday, February 4th, and it is at 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. And again, at South Shore Art Center in Cohasset.
How do you get tickets and where?
They are on our website that I just shared with you, SS Irish Heritage Trail. Oh, sorry, it's ssirishtrail.org.
Thank you. Are there, and how much are they?
They are $125, and then there's $200 for the VIP. And I have packets for all of you. I was supposed to appear in person today, and then I started developing that head congestion symptoms, and I didn't want to infect anybody. So I will drop them off.
Very good. Questions? Comments? Diane, the thumb was up. We could all see it. Well, that was good. Good comment. Paul.
So I just make a motion to approve the one-day license, and congratulations and thank you. Well, we haven't approved it yet, but I've made a motion.
We had a motion made and seconded. Is there discussion? The motion is for February 4th, 2023 to approve the liquor license for the South Shore Art Center. Hearing no further discussion, roll call. We'll start with Diane.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Corey.
Corey Evans, aye.
Paul.
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean.
Jeannie Lee Dippleda.
Jack Creighton, aye. Passes unanimously. Patrice, thank you very much, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you. And I'm not leaving yet because I'm next on your agenda.
There's another one. Yep.
You're next on our agenda. We just approved.
There's a second license.
Oh, you
The
have a
second license. Yeah. So
Party.
No, you approved the first one. Both liquor licensors are for South Shore Art Center, but one is for the.
Tell us about the event on the 15th.
Yes, so if you have a sweetheart and he or she disappoints you, and or you just want to have fun on February 15th, I have a great opportunity for you. It's called Art Off the Wall, Diane. I know you're familiar with this. It's an iconic event that we have every other year. The ticket price is a little expensive. It's $250, but it comes with an original work of art valued at $250. So basically you're paying for a work of art. You get food, drink, and great entertainment. What you're not guaranteed is what exactly the artwork that you that you choose. So there will be 100 works of art, 100 collectors, which that's what we call people at the 250 level. The order in which you select is where it gets a little dicey. So if your name is kind of like a Yankee swap, if you're the first one called, you get your pick of all 100 works on the wall. If you're the 100th person called, you get your pick of what's left. And we, in the nursery rhyme, you know, you get what you get, you don't get upset. But at the end of the day, it's a ton of fun. All the work is really amazing. It's all been created by local artists in the region that are, you know, the gallery artists that are affiliated with South Shore Arts Center. And but there's you know, the food is going to be with Fresh Feast and some from we're getting some French Memories and some Mrs. Mercantile, and then the wine and the beer is going to be the bartenders that we have secured for this evening are through Extra Hands for your event. They are out of Hingham and they are tip certified, and they will be the ones who will be tending bar and keeping everything kosher.
And the time is?
And the time is 7 to 10, 7 to 7:45. You get to check out the wall. 7:45, the bidding begins, and it wraps up by 10 p.m.
Any comments? Paul?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve a liquor license to South Shore Arts Center for February 15th, 2023. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we call the roll. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, I.
Marty?
Corey Evans, aye.
Paul?
Already,
Jean?
Jean Haley double dutch.
Jack Creighton, aye. Thank you, Patrice. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for coming out again. Well,
Of course.
Okay.
Vermilia Amelia Mahogats. Have a great evening.
all
Take
right,
care.
very good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on. One-day liquor license for Friends of Holly Hill Farm, Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Is there anybody who could explain? Is there anybody from Holly Hill here?
You know what it was, Tracy? I don't see anybody.
No.
You may have a problem in that. Does anybody have any details on that?
What's in the packet?
And what's in the,
It's called a seeds and beer event, if I'm reading it right. Beer, food and growing seeds. That's how we have. The 16th of February, from 5 to 8 p.m.
Yeah, seeing as Holly Hill has stuff like this for fundraisers all the time, I've got no problem approving this, even if a representative is not able to make it. So I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor license for the Seeds and Beer event taking place on February 16th, 2023, between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m.
Second.
we have a motion made and seconded for the Friends of Holly Hill liquor license Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, well, roll call. Corey? Oh, you,
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane?
Diane Kennedy, I.
Corey?
Already,
Jean Haley double dutch.
Jack Creighton, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the extension of hours for the Red Lion Inn. Is anybody from Red Lion Inn here? Okay, the manager is not available. He needs to reschedule, so we will put that off. Town Hall Building Committee, Phil Ware, Chairman.
Could, Steve Kirby and John Lemieux are in the audience.
Okay,
We can promote them.
yeah.
Thank you, Phil Ware, Chairman, Town Hall Building Committee. Thank you for having us tonight. We have an update for you. We'd like to talk about it. Mark Cameron is here on the committee with me. We have John Lemieux with Steve Kirby. They are our project management group. And they're here to answer some questions as well.
So over the last month and a half, we've been going through a process to have a construction manager, CM firm, join the team here. So first, we went through a pre-qualification. We had 2 bidders respond, and last week we conducted interviews with the 2 firms that responded. And we deliberated within a subcommittee within the group. And we have a recommendation, which is for the town to hire Commodore Builders to be our CM firm for pre-construction services. So through that process, We'll work with them to work through constructability issues, identify any gaps that may exist on the drawings as we finalize the drawings. And most importantly, work through to get an up-to-date estimate for the project. That'll happen over the next couple of weeks. And then another final bid would be conducted before a town meeting, which would be included into a GMP guaranteed maximum price. And that's the process that we're where we are now and through the Springtown meeting. So as part of this, right now we were approved for the funds in town meeting last spring. And so this is the spending of those funds. This is that portion where we're looking to commit and bring that contractor on board. So there were several factors involved in selecting organization, the team members, their resumes, the depth of the firm, the capacity and the skills and abilities of the firm. So all of those factors, along with price, played into the selection and the recommendation that we are making.
Are we getting any closer to some kind of a price that this is likely to be all in?
So with the hiring of this firm, they will be providing us with an up-to-date estimate. And that estimate is the information that we'll be able to bring to the town and the board to advise this is where the project stands financially at this time. And then there'll be another round of that pricing right before town meeting. That will be actual firm bids. The bids are only due for 30 days, or only valid for 30 days, which is why that timing happens so close to Springtown meeting and not now.
Well, we spoke about this before. You guys are committed to one single plan, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about coming up with different options. Mark, as far as renovating the town hall, with the annex, I mean, it was brought up in the last meetings about looking at different spots in this municipality, fire. Shouldn't there be a couple different options to present to the town? It seems to be it's one way, and that's to rebuild it, do it up, make it new, and make it shiny.
So the charge that we were given as a committee was to look at 41 Highland Ave and fitting the staff. We were given the staff, the head counts. And we looked at renovating the existing building that we had there. We looked at many options at 41 Highland Ave, which was renovating the structures that we have there now. And the determination was the best appropriate action was to remove the 1980s annex and replace that with a new addition and renovate the 1800s portion. There has been, it's not this committee's decision to decide if people should be working elsewhere for than 41 Highland Ave. And that wasn't the charge. So we have not looked at that as an option. That
So
would be
it's never been looked at, just looking at that town hall, say, taking off the annex.
I mean, it has,
Just let me finish it, good, thanks so much. Taking out that annex, doing away with it, looking at the existing town hall and turning it into something, just restoring it into what it was built as. That's all I'm wondering is, and then, looking at other options for, town services, including, I know you.
that's correct. That this committee has not done that. This committee was charged with 41 Highland Ave and to retain the auditorium for civic and cultural uses.
All right, that's where I kind of hang out. I just think the town should be presenting some options.
Diane?
Just a couple of things. I raised my hand for another reason, but just to address Paul's concerns, there were 3 different town hall building committees over the past 15 years. The most recent one, I think, was in 2018 or 19, that explored different areas in town, different land options to buy land, town-owned land, to actually build something anew. And also whether there was real estate within town that we, at the time, 3 years ago, that we could potentially purchase and build out a town hall. each of those 3 or 4 studies, and I think it's 4. I think it's 3 studies, has come to the same conclusion based on input from the town, based on cost estimates at various timelines, when these studies took place, that we wanted to renovate the old town hall and deal with whatever we could in the building based on the needs that we had as a community for both town offices and meeting space. So what Mark said is exactly where we're at, like it or not, agree with it or not, that they were given a charge that we, the town, had done enough research, enough due diligence, had hired enough engineers and enough architectural consultants over the years, had done the public input process, and believed that we should retain town hall services at 41 Highland Ave. So these guys were literally just take that direction from the select board and go with it. So I want to just kind of say that's where we're at again, whether, sometimes when projects go a couple years long, and in this case, it's been 10 years, new opportunities might come up and people might have a different opinion, but this is exactly what we have charged this committee to do. I just want to get back to, because I missed the punchline. I think, Mark, you said that you were recommending Commodore. And I just wonder, the one thing that jumped out at me, they're a little more money, but one of the things that I noticed was their contingency on the building was what seems to me significantly higher, 3.25% versus 1%. And I just wonder what industry standard is and whether that was a factor in your decision making.
It was a factor in our decision making, and it is Commodore's contingency is industry standard, is appropriate for this application, whereas the other is substantially lower and leaving exposure on the table for all of us.
Corey?
Yeah, and I also noted that Commodore was slightly more expensive, and I know we went over this, but this is something where an RFQ doesn't have to be lowest bid, it's qualifications, correct, on this instance? Okay, just, that's what I remembered, wanted to be sure. So thanks for the work on this. Diane, thanks for the refresher of the history lesson. That's all I got, thank you.
Janine?
Yeah, thank you for the work on this. So one question I had last time we discussed the proposal, and one of the things that was important was to have an option for the renovation as is, both of the auditorium and the existing town hall. And I understood we were moving forward pricing that out. So how is that included in the Commodore?
So the project that we've been working towards has shared resources between both buildings. They cannot be built independently of each other. Electrical panels, HVAC, those utilities crisscross between the two buildings. So they need to be done as one project. When we get into the cost estimate and the GMP stage, we will ask and have alerted these firms that we would be asking for this. But from an accounting standpoint, they would be broken out separately. That doesn't mean to say we can pick and choose doing one or the other. But from an accounting standpoint, they would be divided. But you cannot just simply renovate the 1800s building and not touch.
Yeah, and so let me restate just so we're on the same page. And I think we're on the same page, that we're just gonna be renovating both buildings. So we wouldn't be tearing down the new building and then doing a brand new. That was sort of the ongoing discussion about if we renovate the building, both buildings as is there a significant cost saving? I believe that you estimated the price last time and said, no, there really isn't. But that's a number that I know isn't just to have that analysis.
Yes, we can true that number up, but we don't have that would be again, a rough order of magnitude estimate, because we don't have an actual architect design team set of drawings to accompany that logic, because as we were going through the rough order of magnitude estimates, we proved it out that there wasn't a savings there or a substantial savings to warrant doing that project because it didn't check the boxes of all the needs. It didn't have enough square footage that we currently need. Because it doesn't solve the meeting space, and it doesn't account for all the heads in town hall.
I continue to think that's gonna be an important analysis to have out there. For a fully informed decision, including to make the argument.
If I could follow up on that a little bit, is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Okay, just, Gene, if I understand you correctly, but one of the things that we talked about, and I think I used the word last time, context, which is that, the doing nothing option has a cost, right? We've got elevators, we've got HVAC, we've got these things, and I think that's kind of what if I understand it right, that's kind of what we're referring to is, or you're referring to, and I've been referring to as well is, if we do nothing, what does that mean? Because we have to make a decision in context, right? Every decision we make has a broader context. It's not, we're not shopping at Walmart here. So, and not that Walmart doesn't have context, my apologies to Walmart, but that is where, we need to understand the A's and the B's. And I know that we've got studies, and it sounds like Mark and the team is going to firm those up. So yeah, I think that's great data to have as we discuss the best way to go forward.
Well, I know what the cost of doing nothing is, and that's 0 plus negative. So I'm not asking necessarily that question. But I do continue to think that just given the history of how things have panned out with town hall, that's a very important piece. I also think, and maybe you're going to go on to this, one of the most important pieces is going to be making that auditorium a place that's more actively utilized. And I know that Michelle, is Michelle on tonight? That's something that I think we all need to engage on much sooner rather than later, because we're almost in town meeting season, and I think we really need to justify to the public who uses it much less infrequently than, the small minority of people in Cohasset who go to town hall and volunteer and need that conference room space, that this building, once renovated, can be something that is a community asset more so than it's being used today, which I realize is not the building portion, it's more of the communications portion and the marketing portion. But it may be ultimately the most important portion in order to move this.
And the building does play a role in that, because right now it doesn't, anyone that's been to a play in there in the middle of the summer, it's not exactly a nice experience being in there in the heat. So the building does play a role in it, and it's important for that. That to be a quality building that people can feel that they would want to use and want to be there.
Like, I'll give you one example that we recently talked about, which was trying to move press conferences into the auditorium, and with whatever renovation occurs, making sure that it has that capability. So that way we're dealing with some of the issues that we ran into earlier in terms of, not having press conferences on school grounds, and making sure that, again, we just have that as one of many options that the auditorium could serve as. So it's not, and I don't want to say just an auditorium for plays, because obviously that's important, but has more versatility than maybe currently does today.
I think the term is a multifunction space. Which I agree with Gene. I think it's very important. And just to clarify for those people at home who are watching, what is the time frame of this project? I know it will be on the warrant for the town meeting. If you could sketch that out for people at home who may not be right attuned to the latest.
We're anticipating a procurement period from beginning right after Springtown meeting that would go through August, and then an August start, and roughly a 14-month project construction portion.
And do you address where the town's, the employees are going to be working during the interim?
That is
Is that in this figure?
That is not in this figure, because this Commodore is only relevant to the building and the construction of it.
Okay,
The relocation and the temporary housing for town hall would be outside of Commodore scope. That's for us as the town and the committee to provide, which would be part of our overall ask to the town. It would be included in the overall budget.
okay.
But
and I
that's
think
not Commodore's.
I think that's something we'd like to understand what would be, and we understand it's a moving point, but you must have some idea of what it's likely to be. You have a figure for that.
We have a placeholder right now, but our plan is to go out through the public procurement process and find space within town that is suitable for town hall staff on a temporary basis.
But if we were to add up all the costs. Oh,
John wanted to speak if you wouldn't mind.
yes, as long as he's gonna answer that question first and then speak.
Yeah, I think John's gonna answer.
All right, John.
Yeah, great. Thank you for, thank you.
Man.
Yeah, thanks for the setup. So I think at the end of the day, you know, you had all seen those spreadsheets that were coming back and forth, right? I think the number that was in there for a placeholder was $1 million. Given the fact that you've got a time for 16, 18 months, you don't know how, you know, exactly how much space you're going to do. I think, if this seems to be, this is an awful lot trying to be done in 4 months, 5 months, after getting the go. And we realized after finally getting the go signal, there's a number of things that have to take place. There's, getting the CM on board, that's tonight, that's great. It's getting an estimate done so that we can, gut check the number and see where they're coming in right now with an estimate of drawings that are at 95% complete. So they're 5% off of being bid documents. It's to meet with them as early as next week and the architect to talk about some of those other things for that multi-purposing, that room upstairs in the existing historical town hall. Maybe not setting it up for everybody in every use, but if we're doing it, at least making sure that we have pipe and raceways in there. If we're talking about cameras, if we're talking about, other lighting for the stage. So we're going to have conversations about that. So while the designer might be making a few tweaks to the design in the end, the builder is in there, not just estimating the drawings for what we have, but also being able to estimate those things outside of that we might be, saying, after this great feedback about, what that room could be, should be, press conferences, that sort of stuff. It's not designed for that right now, but what would it take to do it? Some floor boxes, some, place to put a podium, like that's the thought that will go into this now. So we'll include those costs, kind of in this number that we're hoping to have inside of 3 weeks. That'll accomplish also the split. So you'll know the number associated with the historical piece. Again, I know that the folks at CPC are interested in that as well. And then, the other side. Then what will happen almost immediately, it's actually going to start as early as next week. We're going to start the pre-qualification process for all the subcontractors. Because of the size of the project, over $10 million, Commonwealth requires that we pre-qualify all of the trade bidders, which is, also would be called filed sub-bidders if we were doing this with the GC, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, painting, kind of that list of standard subcontractors. Also,
but I guess, well, Diane has her hand up, so I want to recognize Diane. Well, she's asking questions. I really do want to say that I think the town would like to know a ballpark, but we understand it can vary by 10.
three weeks. 3 weeks.
Not for that, for the total cost.
Yes. So basically what we're going to do, sir, is we're going to take all the numbers that you've seen on the spreadsheet before, everything, total project budget, and we're going to tell you where it's coming in. And it will have it'll have a placeholder for construction based on the estimate and a placeholder for the temporary space. By the time we get to town meeting, that will be replaced with a guaranteed maximum price, a bid from the CM, as well as a lease number that will also have been bid during the same period of time for a relocation of town hall and what that includes. So
I know that you didn't answer the question, Diane.
I think he did answer the question, at least for me, but the comment I wanted to make was really not relevant to this. I just wanted to put a flag in Chris, that we are going to probably be going back to at least mostly in-person meetings for all of our committees and boards, based on whatever action the legislature takes this spring. So while we'll be able to offer hybrid and remote meetings, I do think there's going to be a very high level of activity of people returning and all of our boards and committees returning to in-person meetings. And we need to make sure we're on top of that for the temporary time period. So it's more than just relocating staff, it's going to be relocating potentially an uptick in in-person meetings. So it not relative to the actual building project, but something we need to think about sooner rather than later. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. To clarify, my question is, is in 3 weeks, would we have a ballpark figure for the all-in cost, assuming it's going to be very flexible?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, 3 weeks, that's all I wanted to do.
Yes.
Oh,
You said you had $1 million as a placeholder. And so what is the placeholder for the all-in project?
It hasn't been up, I mean, again,
You said you had a placeholder.
We
But it
could-
hasn't-
I don't have it with me. I gotta be honest with you. If it was 18 and it comes in next time at 20, I mean, everything, the numbers we've been talking about before were numbers that were done months and months ago that we escalated, that we were doing without the benefit of an estimator. We were just saying, okay, what's in the marketplace? Well, escalation looks like it was, 5% for that quarter or 2%. And we had been kind of moving the number along. The number we've been carrying is immaterial because we now have the CM coming and saying, and we've got drawings that are essentially done. So we're going to be able to tell you where we are. And if the number is, if it's,
I don't find it immaterial, to be honest with you. And, you said you had a placeholder and you don't have a placeholder. So that's all.
I don't have the budget with me tonight, sir.
But we do have the placeholder that we shared from previous meetings.
Yeah, that's-
I don't have it with me tonight, Paul. I didn't bring it with me. But I can certainly send it to you right after this meeting.
I mean, that's the CM is really, that was the idea when the select board said, go ahead and get the CM. So that we can go
But
and
it's an
and improve those numbers and make them and get them, this will be the best number we have in the process so far, because we have the bidder in hand and the drawing's almost done.
What he means by it's irrelevant is it's old and obsolete now. So sharing it is only going to create more confusion as to what it is, because the number is old. And that's why we're 3 weeks away from getting a new number. So we're not going to focus.
Kept constantly appraised at what we're looking to spend.
We've done that in our previous meetings,
That's all I'm saying.
but it's an old number.
so, but I think, Gene, go ahead.
I think that back in November, Michelle put out an RFP for temporary space. And I don't know if we got any responses, and so we may have just like a pure logistic situation too, that Chris, I think we need an update from Michelle on next time we have the town hall building committee here on logistics. I think, Justin, we also probably need your assistance with working with the town hall building committee and anyone else who I think on the select board is interested in trying to figure out, again, modeling some better uses for the auditorium. Because let's say even if we renovate it, that's still going to be a big town discussion, that if we're going to ask people to pay extra taxes, which we're going to have to do, we're going to have to go through a pretty extensive marketing process. And so I keep bringing this up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up because I think that unless we can model some new uses for that auditorium, it's going to be a hard sell. And so I think, we should engage on that, because I do think that that's going to be a part of the question that's out there. And Paul, I understand your frustration with wanting to know a number. you know, for me, I would like to see what the updated number is in 3 weeks from now, once they go through the process. I think right now we'd probably all be guessing. Based on the old number, which was 20 million, I remember from the prior meetings,
The all-in,
with the all-in, and so now we'll see if the all-in is the same based on, you know, the market conditions and the updated plans.
which also includes the previous allocations and
Not, yeah, so not accounting for the money that was set aside in CPC, et cetera, and so, you know, that's gonna be important too for the long-term financial planning committee to have that more specific information as we model other needs like roads and sidewalks, like the schools, like our public safety needs, so, I think the more we can get to those realistic numbers, I think it's gonna be helpful, so thank you.
Diane?
I'd just like to say that I think that the Town Hall Building Committee and Vertex and their professionals need to keep pushing forward with getting us as good numbers as we possibly can. I think it's up to us as the select board and our various committees and advisory boards to do the work of communicating with the town on the project, what it needs to, what it's going to look like, what issues it's going to solve or serve. And you know, it's on us to basically do the marketing as opposed to this building committee. And so I just want to give them at least the endorsement to do what we've instructed them to do, get these realistic bids in, and then we'll take it from, you know, then we need to start taking it from there in terms of selling it or not to the community, so.
Yeah, Diane, that's what I'm saying, like the time to begin selling it was probably yesterday, and so there needs to be a plan in place
that's part B here.
to, okay.
So
I don't want to.
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but there's more to the update than just this part.
If you're updating your chart, great, go for it.
Yeah. Well, so, sure, so we
Step
have,
into the guillotine.
thank you for the support. So we've taken on the firm of John Guilfoyle PR. They currently work for the town now, but we're hiring them separate to help us. They'll help us with a web page, any letters that need to go out, they'll do conferences, they'll do a lot of that stuff that we would like to do, but it's a lot to ask of volunteers. So we're looking forward to working with them. We have a lot of materials from 3 years worth of gathering, plus we've got material from 2018 that we can give to them, and we've also got some historic pictures and documents that were the old town hall that we can supply to them, and they're gonna put all this together in a nice package and start educating the public on the direction we want to go on this. So that's kind of key. It's something we wanted to get going on. Tucker's worked really hard on this, but we all work full-time jobs like you guys do, so it's hard to you know, meet that demand with the time constraints that we have. So we're looking forward to working with them. We just signed that today. So we're ready to move forward on that, and yeah, they're excited to get going. So
They'll be able to help us communicate once we come up with a financial plan of what that means for the taxpayers, what that, you know, in terms of their assessed value house, if they wanted, there could be a little calculator, they can plug it in. And people could understand what that then means for them.
And how much are they
Well-
charging for these services?
$9,500.
From now through the end of the project, so if portion of that's just pre-construction.
And are you at all talking to the long-term financial planning committee? Is this interfacing? Because they clearly.
Yes.
Yes.
Speak to this.
Yeah, so just to weigh in on that, the committee, this is obviously something that we're watching and following as we pull in information, and a smaller group of us met, and I don't want to go off agenda. I think this should be a separate agenda item if we're going to go into this, but the long and short of it is yes. We're waiting to see. The goal of that committee, I think in part, is to have some preliminary information out the door on just our needs generally in our financial policies, because whether it's capital or these generational projects, we're trying to present people with the big picture so they can be informed on all.
So
Really.
the answer to the question is yes, they are. Keep you
Sure.
long term. Good, thank you. Do we have, Justin, do we have anybody from the outside?
No,
Okay.
you know one person, but he's on zoning bylaw, so.
Zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
Board members, are there any comments that everybody would like to make? I mean, this is a pretty important issue, so if board members wish to give an overview or whatever, I think this is a good chance when they're during the update. So I see hands up or whatever.
I'm just looking forward to the number in 3 weeks. I think that's really kind of the point where we will have better grounding. I'm glad that we've got a communications plan in place because there's going to be a lot of questions. That's a good thing. So I'm excited to dive into it.
Other comments?
I just have a procedural question about whether this, the choosing of the OPM or whatever it is, it requires a
Yeah.
vote. The
I
CM
think
requires
we
a vote
already
on
did
our
that.
part.
And I think we already did that.
We did.
Okay.
Or
So the selection is up to the building team?
I think we authorized the money. I think we.
The money's was authorized at town
Yeah.
meeting,
Yeah, so.
but I don't know if procedurally there's a.
Chris, there's a chief procurement officer. Do you have an answer to that question?
If I recall, the board has already voted to authorize the process to get a CM, right?
Yes.
So, and if they've entrusted the committee to pick the CM, I think you're all good. And the board, and if the board's not raising any concerns or issues, then I think it's good. I don't think they necessarily have to vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
Unless, if a member of the board has a concern about that.
Unless John has another
Yeah.
point. Oh,
Yeah, no, and also council already reviewed the contract. The form of contract.
Oh, sure.
Well, okay. Okay, I think we're all set on this. Thank you very much for coming over. You have a very important process and part of it is, and we salute you for having to answer some very detailed questions. This is a major thing for the town and we really appreciate your service. You guys have done.
Thank you.
And the rest of your committee, please share that. Worked very hard.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, customer relations management update, just.
Yes, give me one moment. I know. Been here for a little bit. Give me one. Hi. So good evening, Select Board. I just want to go over a little bit the customer relationship management platform that we've chosen, or the CRM platform. But first, for those who are watching online, in plain and simple terms, the CRM software that we're using helps organizations manage and interact with customers and citizens and their requests. And so the CRM platform that we've gone with is from a company called GoGov, and they have a citizen request management platform. That's what they call it. Over the last several months, several town of Cohasset employees, including myself, have been vetting a variety of CRM products and CRM companies. Obviously, money was allocated during special town meeting to fund the platform. We've decided to go with a company called GoGov. So the town will be using GoGov's citizen request module. As I said, it will be embedded into the town's website. The module will allow the town to manage service requests, provide reporting and mapping, aggregate a variety of data points, and really improve workflow. The town will also have a branded mobile application that you can see an example of it to give you a taste of what it could look like on the right-hand side. It's very similar to the ones pictured. You can see them up on the right-hand screen. This is an example of how the branded mobile app would work. We would choose a name And folks would be able to go into that app, they'd be able to download it onto their phones, onto their iPhones or any other phone. They would be able to start the request, choose their topic, make the request, and add media. And you can see here, this is just an example of, let's say, a pothole, and you can see on the right, somebody taking a picture with their phone and adding it into the form. They could then add a description, submit it, and then they could track their request. They will be given an automatic response, and they will also be given a number, and they can track it and track that request based off of the tracking number that they have. And they can also see when it is completed, and they can also see a photo of the completed task, which I think is pretty cool. This will also include a website portal, and the web portal will be embedded into the town's website. It'll be right on the front page. This is something similar. This is what it would look like, except it would look a lot more like Town of Cohasset's webpage. And you won't be leaving the Town of Cohasset's webpage. You will still be on cohassetma.org because it will be embedded within the page. So it will look very similar to the website page now. Citizens will be able to submit service requests, look at the topic areas. The site would also help promote the app. And this is kind of an interesting view from the staff side of things. This is what I would see, or DPW would see. I know it's a small print, but I'm happy to send this out to you later. This is where employees and staff can really track and assign work and work together with citizens and town hall staff to make sure that tasks are done here. For instance, I don't know if you can see, but I think this is just an example, but the first one says trash and debris, and the status up there says scheduled. The one below it says open, and then it would obviously move to close when it is completed. So one of the neat things about this software is it will generate all different types of reports. So let's say the DPW filled, I don't know, 700 potholes last year. It will be able to generate all of that into a graph, and you'll be able to look at response times. You'll also be able to look at reports on a map. So, yeah.
But that only happens if a citizen puts that in. That's not necessarily a view of all of the potholes that DPW is otherwise filling throughout the town,
Well, here's the interesting thing.
unless they enter it.
Correct. So let's say a citizen calls the DPW, they don't necessarily go through. We're gonna be pushing them toward using this app and using the website. But if I call the DPW to have a pothole, on my street, somebody from DPW would input that information in, and so we'd be able to track it. Because what we really want to do is we really want to be able to see where those tax dollars are being spent, which I think is really important. Not only just to say, well, we filled 700 potholes, but to also say, well, wow, our DPW is doing a bang up job and doing their job 110% every single day. So that'll give us an opportunity to really track and understand where taxpayer dollars are being spent, which I think is really interesting. We have absolutely, Chair.
To build on what Gina was mentioning, will there be a provision where when town employees see a problem and start working with it, that would also be on there, and that would truly give us a comprehensive picture of everything?
Yes.
So we'd have the citizen input,
Mhm.
but it would be helpful to have the town input.
Absolutely. So I could put in something and you would see that I put in an issue, and then that issue would be trackable.
So you could put, for instance, detour Sawyer Street work going on.
If that's what we wanted to do,
I'm
yes,
saying you
yeah,
could.
yeah, oh,
That's-
absolutely. So the cool thing about the software is it's fully customizable. 100% of this piece of software is customizable to whatever we would like to put in. So for instance, our goal is going to be on April 1st to roll out the DPW and along with community services, which Megan James is obviously the director of. So that includes library, rec, and elder affairs. Thank you. And so she's working on her piece of it to help me integrate that piece as well.
I think it's fantastic. I just have a question. How
Yeah.
secure is it? You know, people like to monkey with these things every single day.
So from what we understand and early on in the process, we had conversations with our IT department and they were on phone calls with these folks. I don't know the technological terms. But I am told that it is secure. They use a certain type of security protocol and encryption. I could get that information for you.
It's not,
I still
it's
don't-
not really, I'm
yeah.
just throwing, I'm not trying to be a flying.
No, that's good.
That's
That's a good question.
Say I'm, Bobby from Framingham,
Mhm,
you know, I like cruising through things like that. I just wanna mess with it.
yeah.
I wanna create an incident.
So somebody could theoretically create an
That's what I'm
incident
saying,
if they
you know,
wanted to.
Accident on 3A,
Yeah,
you know, 4-car crash, and you just don't
Yeah.
want. That's all, that's, you know what I'm saying? I'm
yeah,
trying to-
no, you're absolutely
try
right.
to be
Somebody could.
devil's advocate,
Yeah,
so
no, you're absolutely right.
people
Somebody could
aren't doing something
theoretically
like that.
say that. Somebody could say, there's a pothole at, I don't know, 126 Jerusalem Ave.
Yeah,
If they wanted to.
okay,
And that could potentially
yeah.
tie up a resource to go out there and go check it out.
So you, at this point, there's nothing that requires them to verify who they are.
No, well, so I believe that we are going to be adding a, where you live. I believe that will be a requirement. So this is fully customizable, so that's great that you bring that up.
Yeah.
Because we could add that in and we could say, we could say this is. We could technically say this is only for Cohasset residents only, but if you have somebody who's in the area, doesn't live in Cohasset. And they see an issue that they'd like to be addressessed.
But say Paul
Yeah.
Grady, Coasco, Paul Grady, Cushing Road, all right, was reported, so you get that, say you get that
Yeah.
information,
Yeah.
you're monitoring the flow. I'm
Yeah.
Just using you as a.
Yeah.
As the, overall operator,
Mhm.
but shouldn't there be something that just says that, that's what I'm saying about that kid Jimmy from Framingham.
Yeah,
You know, 5-car pile up on 3A.
Yeah.
And then we're diverting resources and things like that, that's all, just maybe some sort of identification.
Yeah, so this is a non-emergency system, so I understand your point. So it's.
Better.
No, I
that's a
hear
good
you.
point.
So if Jimmy wanted to be difficult and say there were 5 potholes on Jerusalem Road and put them out.
Yeah.
We could find out that there weren't 5 potholes, right? And we could then.
Get banned.
We can also, and then say, okay, well, what are you doing, right? And we could require a level of, we could require that you have to give some more contact. We could require that.
That's might be.
And I hear you, so
It's a good idea.
we didn't allow, my prior committee did not allow anonymous complaints because we couldn't track them back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a tip line where like I saw a crime. This is like basic government services. We want to know who you are, what you see, because you want to get the information back. If you're anonymous, we can't tell you. I mean, so this is about a pothole or a tree trim or just trash or dead deer or, what are the hours of the library? Right? So that's kind of, routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you say that, I'm gonna roll it. Again, we're gonna come back to you with more of the details of the roll this out. We've already started meeting internally with departments. And one of the big issues is it's also make sure people buy in, because the initial reaction, for example, Ashley in Public Works was, oh my God, am I gonna have to do all the work for all the guys? We're like, well, no, we'd like to make sure they have pads to go to the field with, or a phone. Everyone knows how to use a phone, right? The app will be on their phones, so they can start taking pictures and stuff and uploading it instantly. We don't want to have to add work. That said, let's say you called Paul and you're like, I'm not on my iPhone, but I just, I had a pothole at 41 Highland Ave. Well, they can put that in and they can take your information and then you can set it up that way too. So the goal would be to push that stuff into the system. So it gets reported, otherwise it's not there, right? If it's just, one of the things that's a challenge is that our guys do great work now, and our team does great work. The problem is it's not written down. So you can ask me how many potholes we've done, but I couldn't tell you. And it's not that, they can tell me, they fill a lot. And the roads are in pretty good shape. That said, we don't have that level of detail.
No, I was just getting more secure so people can't spin your wheels and waste time. That's what I was.
I think that's a good point, Paul.
It's identify, I'm driving by Gene's house and I hit a pothole and here I am up in Cohasset up on the hill. And Paul Brady is reporting that, is reporting, that's all.
So I have to, let's see, you
If
might
that's
be,
something you
can
do.
you set up an account? Do we don't think, can you have like your own little like personal ID in this? Because you can do that in Permanize. So when you do Permanize, you set up an account.
Yeah,
So it's you. I want to look at this, Paul.
Yeah.
And we can also probably tighten up the requirements if it becomes problematic.
Yeah, I think cybersecurity is pretty advanced, and once you bring it up to the vendor that there's some questions about that. I suspect that they have some pretty robust submissions.
I'm not just hosted, right? So we're not gonna host this, the company runs this. They're a New York-based company. We're gonna be their first client in Massachusetts,
Massachusetts, yeah.
so that we're getting 18 months for the price of 12.
Nice.
And they have 300 other cities and towns that they work with.
But anyway, I think to Paul's point, one of the things we'd like you to
Yeah.
ask them to address is exactly the security of the recordings.
I'm just more concerned that you guys, the DPW, people like that, please, whoever.
Yeah.
is Not spinning their wheels over, because you know how people like to play.
Yeah.
That's all I was getting at.
Yeah. No, that's
I'm
good.
not a tech.
No, that's a good point.
Oh, you're-
That's a very good point. That's a good point.
Well, I hope that most people are gonna be honest, but I understand your point. Well taken.
Yeah.
It's very well taken.
Yeah, somebody could, yeah, there's trash consistent in different places. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Okay, are there any other
I see,
questions?
I see Corey, well, you can't.
I
see
can't
it,
see.
but I see Corey has his hand up.
You want to take that down so we can see him?
I have one more slide.
One more slide.
So,
Let's see this slide.
we have a soft launch date of April 1st. Now, here's something that we want to involve the select board in, is coming up with a name. Yeah,
Can we pick a second so people don't think it's a joke?
sure.
That's a good.
Yeah, yeah, we can. Oh, it's the first April 1st?
April 1st.
Yeah, I was about.
Let's say April 2nd. Let's say
April
April.
Saying,
That's
Like, that's a good catch.
Very,
I didn't even realize.
I'm sorry. to-
No, that's a good idea. Well, that's easy enough. What we need from the select board is, we'd like your help picking a name for our branded app. So we've got a couple of names that we've been throwing around. We've heard Connecting Cohasset, we've heard Cohasset Connects, we've heard Citizen Cohasset, we've heard Cohasset Reports. We are looking for a creative name, so we're gonna put you guys to work. We're looking for a creative name for the branded app. That hopefully we could have ready to go by February 7th, not the app itself, but the name of the app, by the February 7th meeting,
So okay, so we have between now and the 7th.
2 weeks.
We could have a townwide competition.
We could.
Is that hard for you to?
No, we could do,
Well,
whatever the select board would like to do.
What it might do is it might get people aware that we're doing this and we're addressing it and get them thinking about it.
You're gonna end up with Bodie McBoatface. That's a reference that only some people get.
We've kind of been defaulting to classic connects or something like that.
That's really what we've been talking
I
about.
love it.
Let's just keep it municipal. Yeah.
If people have ideas, deadline is February 2nd.
Yeah, there you go. My email, and most people know how to get a hold of me.
Okay, Corey, you had your hand up earlier, and then Diane.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of reframe a little bit here. This is to enhance what our citizens were doing over email anyway, right? So people are emailing us. There's no restriction to email. Jim or Billy, whoever he was in Worcester, could send us an email and false report all the time. So, this is really so that when people email us, we're ensuring, or rather than emailing us, the email getting lost or the issue getting lost, there's a trail of some sort. And we can obviously then connect that with accounts or with locations, that kind of stuff. But, unless we were getting like a huge swath of like faulty emails now, I'm not hugely expecting this to be a problem, because we're just improving a system that's already existing. So just wanted to kind of reframe what this is.
Okay, Diane?
And it's Jimmy from Framingham. I think I know him. And then I just want to say that April 2nd is a Sunday, so you might just keep that in mind, what date it is.
Just bought me 2 more days, Diane. There you
Yeah,
go.
great work. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm gonna come up with a name.
Good. Any other questions on this subject?
Very good, Justin.
Thank you. We do have a question from the audience.
Okay,
And I'm just gonna read it. It's from Mike Dick, Capital Budget Committee. Consider using a defined list of Cohasset street names for customers to pick from. Our code red notification system suffers from multiple names for the same street. This happens when the public is allowed to use any text rather than choosing for a defined list.
okay. Well, that's,
Yeah.
we'll think about that. That's a good point. Thank you, Mike. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, moving along to zoning bylaw update. Is Tom Callahan available?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, well, we're getting him on.
He's coming up
The
now.
zoning bylaw has been working very closely with town council and specifically Judge Cutler, who was a retired Chief Justice of the Land Court. So we're moving forward. We're doing an awful lot of very long tedious work going line by line on zoning, which is really exciting. And Tom has been chairing this committee. So is that you there, Tom?
That is me.
All right.
May,
Thank
may I
you.
share, may I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
You should have permission to, Tom.
Okay.
Major co-host.
Yeah, I just wanted to put up what I circulated to you. Obviously, to shorten the discussion, it's all there in writing of what we're up to, what we are planning for this upcoming. You'll see our schedule of rolling this out to the public and review by the various boards. And then I've also given you a preview of what we're going to be doing in the fall town meeting, which is probably going to be dealing with far more substance. This spring is largely some housekeeping articles. There is a few substantive changes that you'll see noted, particularly in Article 8, the section dealing with nonconformity, going to tackle the Cohasset's unique version of the single lot exemption. And I guess, you know, other than, I don't want to go down this and take up your time going line by line. So I don't know if you've had time to look at it. If you have any particular questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thanks, Tom. The one pager was super helpful. So I did have a quick question on the definition of height. To better clarify the measurement, are you talking about flood elevation or what? Where?
No, so this has come up with the planning board. There was a project last 2 years ago or a year and a half ago that particularly brought it to the head because, you know, it's the definition of where do you start at the bottom and where do you measure up to the top. We have a uniform 35-foot height limit. The change would not change that. That comes in Article 5, the table of dimensional regulations, that if we change 35 feet, we'll deal with that in the fall. This is to clarify where you measure at the bottom as the starting. And it's basically, first, we'll create many more data points at the bottom because we don't have ideal flat pieces of land in town. So right now we get maybe 2 or 3 data points, and an applicant will say this is the mean grade of the property. Well, we're going to have many more multiple points around the entire perimeter of the site. And then on the height, the top measurement, the big change that we are proposing is to, right now for a peaked roof, we measure the 35 feet to the middle of that roof, not to the top. And we measure to the top of a flat roof, a mansard roof, a gambrel roof. We want to change that and make for all types of roofs. The top measurement of 35 feet will be at the top of the structure. So it'll be at the peak of the peaked roof. So that's the change. And that's been in the works, by the way, with the prior working group. We have talked about this for a year and a half. And it is something that comes up in the planning board constantly about, you know, we're getting so many more projects with larger houses and pushing the height limit, and it's be very helpful to our work if we have a better definition and a better measurement of height than we have today.
Hey, Jane.
Do you think you'll have a red line for sharing?
Well, this is our approach. So you'll see at the rollout that we're going to do to the public on February 27th, and this is to present it like we would at town meeting, but without, you know, a town meeting ultimate decision at the end of it. We want to get feedback. The planning board here, and we're going to get feedback. So we're preparing a slideshow. Some of the articles are rather long, and the changes might be, although they're just a word here or there, we're probably going to do side-by-side comparisons. We talked about this last night at the bylaw committee meeting. On some of the really simple changes, and height is probably one of them, yes, we'll probably do it in a red line form. But for some of the more substantial changes of text and moving text around, the red lines get confused. So we're going to present things in a format of either side by side or red line.
And I might add, another thing that we may be doing is on special things, and this is the suggestion of Judge Cutler. We may have some brief annotations to put some perspective in that, because sometimes these can get very dense. And annotations would just be a very brief thing to explain what they're looking at. We haven't decided on that, but that might be in addition. The reason we didn't go with complete red lines is it becomes very confusing to keep everything in perspective, where you're looking at a whole page of nothing but intersecting lines.
Yeah, you know, a lot of this that's being presented in the spring is so much of just housekeeping and cleaning up language. KP did a very thorough diagnostic of every section of our bylaw. And, you know, the suggestions range from changing language, updating things to conform with case law. So it ran the gamut. It was very thorough and very extensive. And some of it may just be saying the same thing in a slightly different way. And we're going to point all of that out with annotations or however we do it. And here in this quick summary, I'm trying to point out, I tried to point out at least where there might be some substantive differences in these 10 articles we're going to bring forward this spring.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly worth pointing out that when this select board decided to put a good portion of this into our town council, that allowed our citizens to be much more effective. Tom and the other members have done tremendous amounts of very detailed work on this. And our law firm, KP Law, in particular, Judge Cutler, has provided a lot of clarification. They pulled things out of one section of the zoning code and they put it where it belongs. So I think we're going to have a very a zoning code that, amongst other things, is a lot easier for our citizens to understand, and if they hire architects or engineers, a lot easier for them to understand. So it's pretty impressive. And again, thank you, Tom. You've done good work.
I mean, the other thing about this spring, as you can see, we're just really we're gonna work within the existing framework of the bylaw, which has 22 articles, 2 of which are already no longer in force. At the very end of the process next fall, with all the changes made, then we might do some consolidation of 22 down to, you know, whatever, 10, 12 articles.
I interrupt you just 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Diane has had her hand up.
No, please let him finish. He may
Oh, no,
answer
I'm finished. I don't want to go on and stuff, but you know, we're doing this we're doing it in a 2-step process because it's a lot to bite off in one meeting to do the entire bylaw. This is a lot. We're going to have 9 articles. We're going to have as many or more in the fall, and it's a lot to do. But you know, we are going to organize this in a way that it makes sense, that it's usable during the transition from spring to fall to the final product. But just so here it is in an outline form of what we're looking to do.
And perfect wrap up or segue to some of my questions, which is mostly about process. So in terms of what we're doing this spring, is that something that has to go through the select board?
Yep.
Asks the planning board to have a set of hearings.
Yeah, so you can see in the presentation schedule, you know.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
Yeah, not long before this bylaw committee, the working group thought about this too. You know, after what happened at the fall 21 town meeting, yes, we took it as this is a simple definitional change. We didn't do a lot of preparation of the town before that, and you know, that meeting became a fiasco. So we wanted, whatever we were going to do going forward, we wanted to get this out into the public as early as possible, as thoroughly as possible, so that the people who actually show up at town meeting are informed, educated about what it is we're trying to do. We want feedback. That's why we're starting the forum early, so we have time to do some changes of text if we need to. But we're going to roll that out. Originally, we we're going to do 2, and today I found out because of scheduling, we need to do it in 1, which is fine. It'll be just like we presented at town meeting. And then March, we're going to do the formal planning board hearing, hopefully in one night, and tentatively that's March 8th at this moment. And then if we can get that done in one, we can start going to the other boards in late March, but I understand town meetings May 1st, so we're targeting April to go to your board, the advisory, and I think on this, we'd want CBA's recommendations as well.
And it's worth noting that the bylaw has, in addition, had two very well-attended major meetings, well-publicized public meetings at Willicott Commons. So a very great amount of work has been done to make sure everybody in town is aware of this.
And just to add, I think it's important to, in the conversations, to keep reminding people that we are going to be bringing them some more meatier things that might have had a link to the hearing or the public forums that we had this fall, in the fall, so that we don't get that lame excuse of, we don't do anything substantive at special town meeting.
Yeah, I think I've many times explained my position on the difference between annual and special.
Let's not get too deep into
But, we are going to, the text of these articles for the spring, as soon as they're finalized by Judge Cutler, and I met with staff today, they're going to get up on the web, the zoning bylaw committee's page on the website. We're going to do this forum. We can talk to Justin and staff about what other ways we can get the text out there to people. The public can participate in the forum, the public can participate at the planning board's hearings. And, we're going to do our best to make sure, like I said, that everybody who shows up on May 1st is educated about what it is we're trying to do here.
Well, thank you, Tom. Are there any other comments? Justin, do we have anybody from the audience? Any other comments from the select board? Gee.
My suggestion, Tom, is that from a marketing and communications perspective, to the extent that there is anything of real substance beyond housekeeping that we are doing, like the single lot exemption or height. Having learned my lesson from the last town meeting on these issues, I think the select board needs to help you be engaged also on the marketing front and be sufficiently well educated, including, for example, on things like cost benefit and impact on the single lot exemption. I know Katie Dugan did a lot of behind the scenes work on that, but really beyond just sort of your standard warrant review, to use the select board as a mechanism also for communicating sort of a clear message to citizens on the substantive issues that we're pushing forward at the town meeting, because I think that's probably where the most focus is going to be, right, on some of those few issues. And so I think we probably need to think, about how to effectively do that.
Oh, yeah, no, we believe me, we're thinking about it, and we can explain, I'll just say quickly about the single lot exemption before everybody freaks out, is that anybody who has rights today under Cohasset's unique version of the single lot exemption, and absent doing a drill down on each individual property, we can't estimate how many people that is. Those rights are preserved. No matter what we do at town meeting, those rights are preserved. There's case law from the Supreme Judicial Court that says that. What we are looking to do with the amendment is to address use of our unique single lot exemption provision going forward, not going back. We cannot repeal it. We cannot amend it if anybody has existing rights today.
Well, thank you, Tom. You're breaking up just a little bit, and Paul Grady has a question.
Tom, is that right? Is that in perpetuity for the current owner, or what if someone else buys the house? Does the sunset that rule?
Since the single lot applies to properties, not owners.
It doesn't apply to the owner of the property, so if I sell my house.
No, it runs with, yeah, your property either has it or it doesn't. It's not dependent on who, I mean, I can get into a long legal thing about owners, but no, if it applies to your land, it will apply to the land if owners change.
In other words, nothing changes.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So in other words, nothing changes.
When we brought this up the last time, it was brought to our attention by an individual. There's a Supreme Judicial Court case that says that if a town grants extra grandfathering rights than the state law on single lot exemption does, those rights are preserved, even if you attempt to repeal it. And it came up in a case where Orleans, the town of Orleans, once had a bylaw like ours, repealed it, and somebody wished to build on a lot using the old Orleans bylaws some 28, 30 years later. And the Supreme Judicial Court said, yes, once those rights were granted, you get to preserve those rights. But whether you have those rights depends on an analysis of the particular property in question, of knowing the deed history, the ownership history, et cetera, et cetera. So it's impossible to say how many people are affected of this. It's really case by case.
Well, thank you, Tom.
I mean, you know, I'm sure at the forum and at the planning board hearings, we'll get into that in more detail. But, you know, I hear you, Gene, on, you know, maybe we just highlight if we can do a mailing, just the things that are substantive changes. I'm open to all ideas on how we publicize this, but again, our goal is to.
We also have Justin, who's been instructed to assist in that. That's one of the upshots of last night's meeting. Any other questions from the audience or from the select board? I can't see if either Diane or you don't have any questions. You're good. Tom, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, thanks.
Moving on to the approval of minutes for 1/10/23.
Move to approve.
A chance to review the minutes. Can somebody make a motion?
Corey, did I second?
Oh, Corey,
I did, and
all right.
Paul
Voted.
second.
Okay, we've had a motion to approve for 1/10, the minutes for 1/10/23. So any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the two.
Aye.
Diane?
I'm going to abstain only because I wasn't present for the entire meeting.
Aye. All right, motion carries 4 with 1 abstention. Town manager update, Chris.
Okay, a couple of quick things. Everyone is probably getting in their mail, or should have gotten in the mail at this point. There was a regular National Grid customer information on the town's electrical aggregation plan. Lots of information on accessible to the town's website. In short, what it does is it's a system that's gone. It's been in place for dozens and dozens and dozens of municipalities across the state. Basically, it has allowed the town to, with a company and with other communities, to like bid out all of the users to get a better price. So what it means is that as of right now, the base plan that's in the Cohasset proposal that you automatically be moved into, by the way, unless you opt out, is half the rate that National Grid is charging today. So everyone would say automatic. The other, and I hate to use this consulting company, the other win-win of this is that it also builds up more renewable energy into the mix. You could even go with 100% renewable energy plan, and that's all it's playing. Questions, go to the town's website, there's a phone number to call. Please look into it. This will go into effect on March 1. So again, if you have concerns or questions, feel free to call that phone number and take a look at the website.
There's a public meeting.
Chris,
Thursday night.
Okay, there's a public meeting on Thursday night.
Yeah. Wilka Commons.
Okay.
Yeah.
What time?
and
7 p.m.
Public meeting, Wilkin Commons, 7 p.m. Anyone who has any questions, and it's gonna be streamed, right?
Yep, it will be hybrid.
Chris, one important tweak, if anyone is already buying their electricity from a third party, you are not automatically enrolled. That's the question I've gotten a bunch of times from people. So just to clarify.
You can voluntarily enroll if you were allowed to by that plan. Correct.
Correct. If you would have to drop your plan, you'd have to connect, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, you are not automatically enrolled.
So this only automatically impacts people who are on the base National Grid plan, which is most people, not everyone. Another quick update. The board has asked us to look into charging for the charging stations. So we're in the process now of trying to find a new vendor to manage those charging stations. It has after the experience that we've reached to this point is that we really kind of need a new approach, and we're gonna make this work. So we're hoping to come back next month with that whole plan. So but that's in progress. I just want you to all know that. Next meeting, we'll be bringing the police department in. They want to formally announce and ceremonially swear in the 2 new sergeants who've been appointed. And I think they'll also recognize some of the officers appointed as well. So that's the next one. That's it.
Very good, thank you.
Chris, a question for you. Did you get anywhere with the backup batteries for Harborview senior housing?
Having conversations. Yes.
Is
Yeah,
there some
yeah.
sort of hang up? I know we're at the final stage.
So no, we're not really at the final stages, so it's more complicated than that, but from the legal perspective, the answer is yes, we're almost at the final stage. So,
Okay, yeah, so I know that we've got a timeline and that stuff has to get back, otherwise we lose our window to get these awesome backup power systems for the senior housing.
The other, speaking of seniors, Chris, I know you want to talk about, it. We have had the heat issue at the senior center. Is there a progress report on that?
yes, so the Elder Affairs building is a heat pump system. So unlike a normal hot air or hot water system, there's refrigerant that runs all through the building, or again, other people know this more better than I. The runs through that makes the air pumps
Right.
work. Unfortunately, there's after lots of vetting in the system, because I've been working on this, potentially some leaks. They're now in the process of trying to identify where the leaks are, fixing them, and then repressurizing the system to get everything working. Some parts of the building are great, some parts are not. Unfortunately, the system is not zoned in a way that makes it easy to fix. So that said, they've been working intensively. They've now discovered there were indeed leaks. It took a long time to figure that out. And they're now working to get that fixed. Unfortunately, the leaks, everything's behind the walls. So it's not easy to see, and it's not the way the system was installed. It's not so like you have a home system, right? You just turn a valve. So they're working through that. So hopefully now that they know where it is, I think they're making progress. And I will find out. I'll check with them tomorrow to find out if there's a time. Is that helpful?
Thank you. It's frustrating.
It is indeed.
Yes, very frustrating. And I think our citizens, we want them to know that this has not been ignored. And we're aware of it and we're working on it. And I know that's not a satisfactory answer, so we're motivated. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Selectmen comments. We'll let the Corey and then Diane.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Diane.
I just wanted to say that I was at the Mass Municipal Conference and many of you were as well. And the featured speaker on Saturday night was Anthony Everett, who does the Chronicle program and is a Cohasset resident. And the next day I heard from probably 15 or 20 different people about Anthony's comments, which were basically how difficult a situation the community navigated with respect to media descending on the town, and how proud he was to have the kind of leadership in town, particularly in the public safety in the town hall. So it was really nice to hear that, and I'll just leave it at that.
Diane, you need to point out that you got a big, huge bouquet of flowers. Because all your years of service on the Mass Municipal Association Select Board committees.
Those flowers were from the Women Elected Municipal Officers, the WEMO program. So thank you.
Corey. I'm sorry, Paul.
I'd just like to take a minute to thank, again, we went through the grist mills to kind of piggyback on Diane, just thank our police and fire department. Chris, you guys have done a yeoman job. Again, with the town being run through this kind of thing, it's a novel and unpleasant experience for everybody. And they've done a hell of a job. I'd also like to take a minute to thank Justin Parry, Tori Hanna, Bill Burnett, Ralph Dormitzer for volunteering to get on a committee. We're looking for more people, but I really appreciate that. I think we all do. It's time to get this started, and so I just like to take a minute to do a shout out for them volunteering. I think it's going to be a good committee. I think we're going to get things done. And look forward to getting it started.
Thank you, Gene.
Yeah, I would like to echo the thanks that, Diane and Paul, said to our police and fire. And I also want to agree with Corey and the comments he made last meeting about really need to take a closer look at our public safety buildings. And that's something I think in the context of long-term financial planning that is going to come up, where I do think that that is an issue that's rising to the top more quickly than I think folks realize. So anyway, more to come on that, but I appreciate that our police and fire have been working in conditions that are not ideal, which is unfortunately the status of too many of our municipal buildings. And we need to put them into the equation too, as we figure things out.
Thank you, Jane. I'd kind of like echo that on the police and fire. Some of us went through the facilities Monday mornings. Some of us have been through them many times before. I think that in conjunction with dealing with the schools and dealing with the town hall. As we all know, we initiated with a lot of Gene's help, a long-range financial planning committee. And that committee is meant to look at all of these needs for the town and start finding out what are the needs are, what they will cost, and ultimately, how will we be able to pass that. And I think that this select board, and I would say the rest of the select board, and exempt myself, has really taken a very good look at the overall town and is looking at identifying problems and solutions. And a lot of very hard work behind the scenes. And what we like to see, and which we are seeing, is a reevaluation of what we can do and smart, intelligent ways to deal with that. And other things, just very briefly, I think the select board members handled themselves with great restraint. Every newspaper, television, national reporter was on our backs, trying to coax comments out of us. And our policy, our select board policy, was we turned it over to our professionals, and we did not involve in that, and we were sorely pressed. And I think a little quiet appreciation is due to the select board members who put town above everything else. So they deserve a salute from all of us. And on that note, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So move second.
Okay.
But you know, I'm off the movie contract.
I think it was seconded 4 times. Does that mean it passed? Anyway. Roll call, Corey,
For Evans, aye.
Diane,
Diane Kennedy, I.
all,
Already out.
Jane,
Green Hill,
Jack Reagan.
thank you.
We are adjourned.